Hello, everyone, and welcome back. This time we're in the Myers Animal Entertainment Park, and it's basically Dominic trying. It's a failed casino, and he needs you to come in and fix it because it's being converted into a zoo, but it was done hastily, so there's power outages, and the animals aren't in the best conditions, and he also is finding a bunch of animals just, in sketchy places for you to put in here. I don't care if you think it's underpriced, honestly. But one thing I always hear from people about this zoo is that it's very big and it's kind of intimidating, and they're not sure where to start or what to do, and they end up losing a lot of money as time goes on. And I'm kind of disappointed that I can't actually show you everything that I usually do, but I can't do anything about lost recordings, so we're just gonna go through it step by step. Starting with the bronze, so reach 90% water cleanliness for all the water on the map. Dominic is going to give you these 5 Indian elephants that you have to place, and then you have to earn a yearly shop profit, not just regular profit, but from your shops around. So you're going to want to go into your heat maps here, turn on your water, and find out where things are dirty. So that's going to be the gharial will be dirty. These are Himalayan brown bears. You put those in later. I believe it's your peafowl will be dirty. I'm not sure where they are. Oh, they're over here. All this will be dirty. So you have to find places to put new water treatments. Now I usually put one here, which is right outside of the peacock habitat. I'll put one back here so it's getting the tapirs because they have to have water. There is another place that's just has an empty slot. It's like an empty shell. Yeah, it's right here. So these two will be shells. There'll be a transformer in here, but I had to take it out because I had to put this down, and it doesn't function if it's all closed in inside of a building, but the water treatment's still there. And that'll get that taken care of pretty well off. I mean, it's just about waiting for it at that point. And once I get the Indian elephants, I usually put them over here. And this is empty from the get-go, and it's a good space for them. And again, you can't do any terrain editing, and that's another reason I put them here, because it's got this big filled out spot where you can just put water, because the Indian elephants, they have to have water. So I just put a little staff area right outside them. I tend to put a research facility here. You'll need another water treatment, and eventually you're going to have to put its own dedicated energy source here because the turbines and the solar panels don't have as much of a reach as the transformers. So go ahead and put your elephants in. Make sure they have a big enough hard shelter here. This is something that I tend to struggle with. I every time I do this, I never give them a big enough space to sleep under, but this time it worked out. I managed to do it. And the shop profit is where I tend to have the most issues because I find there's not a lot of places to put shops down here in this zoo that make sense. They have this big area with shops in these shells that are closed, but I never use this because it's so far away from where the entrance is and where all of your animals are that people have to walk a long distance to get here. And it never earns enough money because of how far people have to walk. So in my experience, it's best to just leave them closed and actually straight up delete them out of here because you'll get money back. Normally I would have removed the toilet too, but I forgot it was like tucked back there. So people still sometimes will roll through here and use the restroom. So I had to put down bins because somehow they were leaving like a huge trail of trash behind them. So if you're gonna leave the toilet, then keep that in mind. Now I usually put a little restaurant thing here. It's not, they don't have to walk as far. And it's so hot in this particular area that you're going to want to have a like 2-to-1 ratio of food stalls versus your drink stalls, and slushy and water are your best. Don't put down coffee shops because people aren't going to want to buy coffee. And you also have an underground area where there's shops. I believe you have to go through here. And this is the same as the last zoo. You're going to have to pay attention to where people are littering, because there's some areas like under here, there's no trash cans. You have to put them down because they'll just litter under here and it will make a big mess. So, and there's other areas within the zoo where it does that as well. So go all the way through here and you're going to get these shops. Now, when you first come here, they're all food shops. There's yeah, I don't remember which one it is, but you'll have 3 food shops and then your Looney Balloons. I changed one of them to the Gulpy. Honestly, you could probably get rid of the donuts as well and change that to another drink shop, because people are always going to want more drinks than they are food in this shop. I usually leave the Looney Balloons because it's the only merchandise shop. More shops is right here, leading up to where the elephants are. Now, obviously, there's other places you could put them. I like to connect this path right here. There's path that's already laid down here when you start the game, and I just kind of connect them so people can get all the way around. But you could put shops back in here instead of a habitat if you wanted, but I tend to put them right here. And again, this is ice cream because it's hot here, another water shop, and then I put another Gulpy slushy on the other side. And then it's just waiting. You have to wait the full year to see if you actually made the profit you need. While you're doing that, it's always good to go and look at your other requirements for this zoo. So you have to get your guest happiness to 65%. One of the issues is obviously going to be hunger and thirst. And if it gets really bad and those shops just aren't hitting it, you could also, if it gets really bad and you have to put down vending machines like this, that's fine. They're not going to really make profit, so you have to be careful with that and where you put them, because they tend to eat money. So, yeah, just keep that into consideration, but it will help with the happiness if the people can't get to one of the restaurants to eat or drink. Capture all escaped animals. I never had any escaped animals in this, so I didn't have to worry about that. If you're gonna leave the Indian rhinos here, then it's really best to get rid of that flimsy fencing, and I replaced the entire thing with the brick wall, the brick habitat wall, because they will break down the flimsy fencing, and it's just not private enough. They get stressed really easily. And another solution is to take them and put them in with the elephants, because they get enrichment from sharing a habitat together. Just make sure that you have a big enough hard shelter if you're going to add those extra animals in here. I've done both. I left them in here this time because they were fine, and I just replaced the whole wall with brick so they couldn't get out. And so at that point, you probably will hit your bronze. You're working on this if you haven't gotten it already. I had actually hit the 13,000 profit by the time it switched over. I never had any escaped animals, so that just kind of went up on its own. You have to wait a year for it to work out. And then you're going to be given another quote-unquote rescue animal by Dominic, which is the Bengal tiger. And they want you to put it in a specific place. I'm pretty sure there's nowhere else where if you put it that it would count, which they want it right here. The first time I ever did this, I had no idea this is where they wanted me to put it. But yeah, this is where they want it. It's like partially built when you get here. There's only this little section and you have to finish it off. And then go ahead and put him in here. So here's the tiger. Yeah. And it's kind of like a quote-unquote not the best tiger. He doesn't have the best... He or she, I don't know if it's a boy. It's a boy. Doesn't have the best stats, but, you know, whatever. Just make him happy. Do research for him. I tend to put right outside the habitat gate. You can go under here. I tend to put a research thing and a workshop here right off the bat. Because there is no research or workshop when you first start this. So I would recommend, and I should have said it at the very beginning, but get these down and then start your mechanic on the power. So that would be under mechanic research. You'll have one when you start, but that's just going to give you the turbine, and I like to have that and the solar panel when I have to get to it. So that should get you through silver once you get your tiger in here and no animals have escaped. They say that they'll try to escape when the power goes out, but I've never, aside from the rhino, I've never had an animal in this zoo try to escape because the power goes off, so I don't know about that. Hopefully, if your guy has been researching since you started the bronze, you will have both the power things when you get to the gold. Because you have to power everything in the zoo with renewable energy for at least 12 months, because that's going to keep the zoo from having those power outages. But you have to keep in mind, these don't cover as much. Go into your power setting under your heat maps. These don't cover as much, so you might have to find some places around to cover the gaps that it's going to be left. And they also, these power sources cannot be completely covered up. Obviously, the sun can't reach them, and they also aren't getting hit with wind if they're covered up. But most of the transformers in this, you can delete them and replace them with one or the other, whichever one you want. The solar panel, the reason I like to research it, because some people just don't, is it doesn't cause an impact at all. The wind turbine does. The solar panels, the guests don't care about them. And when you start the game, you have this really obnoxious transformer right here. And if you leave it, it causes people to get really annoyed when they walk by it because it's right on the path. And if you replace it with a turbine, they're still going to get annoyed by it. But if you replace it with this, they don't care about the solar panels at all. So I usually put a solar panel there. And it's not important, but I also open this up to get another viewing area into the Gharial's habitat, because before this it's all closed off and the only way to see him is to be over here, which I think is just dumb. It's not required. I just think you'd want to see him swimming around. So, and like the last zoo, most of these habitats don't have proper education and donation bins set down, so it's really important to do that when as you're building. And all the ones, yes, I know that this is going to be a problem the whole game. I always have problems with the peacock thing getting dirty. I always, when I first start, put the male on contraceptives, because the first time I did this, there were so many babies in here. There was like 20 peacocks and they all had a disease and it got out of control very fast. So I just try to limit the amount that they're in there. So go back to gold. You have to house 4 different species in a single habitat. So when you start, let me find it. You have this habitat over here, which has pronghorns and springboks in it already. This is what I always use to hit this goal. And I usually will put 1 sable antelope in here because they can be by themselves. They can just be one. And also a single warthog, because again, they can just be one by themselves. And they'll all get along just fine. They can have their terrain set appropriately and they'll all be happy with it. So you can have animals from different continents together in a habitat. They're just not going to get enrichment from it, but it's not going to hurt anything as long as they're both prey species and have relatively similar terrain needs. That should take care of that. Dominic's going to give you 2 Himalayan bears. And eventually he is also going to give you, I believe it's 3 ring-tailed lemurs and 2 Nile monitors. We'll start with the Himalayan brown bears and what I did with them. I put them over by the elephants since I made this roundabout. I decided just to snug them back in here because then they're already right next to these staff facilities. I had to put down a turbine over here to power them, but this area turned out pretty good for them. You know, there's other places in the zoo you could put them. There's a lot of raised areas in the zoo where, like, this path, you could take this up and whatever you want to do. This is just where I happened to put them this time. So then you're going to get the ring-tailed lemurs, and I've done 2 different things with them before. One, if I take the rhinos out and put them with the elephants, I've converted this habitat for the lemurs, and I don't really like this for the lemurs, but you could, you know, it's not going to hurt them. But what I did this time was this whole habitat here, it's gargantuan, was just for the mandrills, which is ridiculous. They don't need that much space. So what I'll do, I'll go ahead and pause it, is I make sure they're all on this side. And normally this is open, but I take wall pieces and I close it off. And normally this is open. I go ahead and I take the wall pieces, close this off, and then I turn just this little section into an area for the mandrills. Make sure they have all their stuff over here, climbing, enrichment, food, water, all that good stuff. And then I take this other side and make it for the lemurs. I'm 100% certain in your game that the lemurs need foliage, but again, I don't have to have any. They're mad about something. I don't know what this is, but whatever. They don't have to have foliage in mine, but make sure they have their own climbing thing, that they have all their enrichment, and I've found that this is a good spot for them for the most part. He gives you 3. I think it's 2 females and a male, or 3 females, something like that, but I think it's 3 females, but I got them a male, so there's 4 of them now, and there's a little baby in here. They've had a baby. King Julian. Lova. So that's the ring-tailed lemurs. And the last thing that you have to do is put in the Nile monitors. Those are the last animals he gives you. And I put them right over here. There's this spot here that's just water that's already here. So I always find it's a good space for the Nile monitors because they have to have water. They don't have to have a lot of land space, so this is just kind of a tiny little area. I usually block it off with walls there, some rocks, and then there's this big empty spot here where you can put staff facilities as you need them, and the Niles do pretty good here. Let's go check them out. Watch them swim. There's 2 in here. I don't know where the other one is. She might be... Oh, she's eating. He's eating. Beautiful. That's all of your animals down. And then, obviously, the last thing you need is the 15,000. And that's really going to come from putting down all these new animals and getting your numbers bumped up. And then the shop profit just kind of comes naturally after that. That's basically it with this one. I know a lot of people find it hard because it's kind of intimidating, and people have said, oh, the coverage thing isn't working. You don't have to get all of these things powered, just the essentials. You have to get all the shops, all the staff buildings, all of the like habitat boards and habitats themselves, the water cleaners, just essential stuff. All the stuff on the outside, the windows, that doesn't have to be powered. It's not important. Now I ended up having a little tiny gap right here that at one point had a habitat education board, and of course, this one little spot. I could probably figure out a way to get that powered, but I just said, screw it, and took the education board. So sometimes you just have to do what you have to do to get it to work. And as night falls, that's my favorite part about this zoo is I love all the colored lighting. But that's about it for this one. And my next zoo is the last one where I have to do it like this because hopefully I will be able to capture everything that I need and everything I need to record, and it will go off without a hitch. So thank you all for being here and watching, and I'll see you in the next one.